Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hey, I'm Justin, the guy. Today we're going to wrap up this Trek 5200 OCLV, made in the United States bike. That's a mouthful. It's a Trek bike. We're wrapping it up. It's going to be fun.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hi, I'm Justin, the guy. Obviously, I have a garage shop. Taking scary how to use bikes one bike at a time.
If you like these videos, please like and subscribe.
So what's remaining on this is bar tape, which is quite obvious, in addition to some fine tuning and throwing some pedals on it, and it should be good to go. This bike has been actually a gem to work on. The paint itself pops, it's or clear coat, and it's carbon nude painted over. Actually is bringing it to pretty good life, and the componentry was in really good shape. In addition to the wheels are awesome. This is going to make somebody an awesome beginner entry level, or even the next step up entry level road bike. It's going to be fast, quick, and it's one of those things that's a tested, tried, true. They've had this particular carbon frame for several years until they switched it out to a different design, but they did keep the bonding portion of it for a lot. They've been doing that for almost over a decade. So it's actually a really good, solid bike. So without further ado, let's dive into this after my cup of joe. First I want to do is start the bar wrap, but actually not complete it. I'm just going to tape these housing pieces down. The reason being is I want them to be in their position and ready. So when I do adjust the derailleurs and brakes, there's no question or change, if you will, when these are actually put in. So sometimes, not saying all the time, and it probably shouldn't, but once you compress these down, sometimes it kind of changes the cable a little bit. So you want to have this pretty much set by the time you want to do your adjustments. So you're not readjusting afterwards or thinking it's adjusted and go for the ride and it's like, oh, it's not adjusted right. So we will do this first real quick. Just use electrical tape. You can use color if you want, but black just seems to be the go-to that I have. And these particular bars have an indentation where the brake housing fits into, like so. And first I do the corner, that kind of pushes it back. Then I do right shy of where the bar tape will end, like so. Then I double check, make sure there's no binding of any cables and so forth, because that could be very troublesome, especially if you have to wrapping everything, like, oh man, I gotta take it all apart. Nobody wants that, so we're gonna just go forward from there, and it looks pretty good. I'm just gonna wipe off a little excess grease today. God, keep it pretty. All right, now I'm gonna throw in the pedals. There's a right, it'll be marked right here in the R, and then there'll be a left on here to be installed. So let me show you how those are installed. So we're putting on the right one and pedaling backwards, and this is R, which would be your right foot, and the R would thread in that way. And these don't have a 15 millimeter clamp, so you have to use the Allen for these particular ones. And you just thread them in like this, like so. Then give it a good little snug tight. And then on the other side, like that. And when you're on the downstroke, on these particular Allen ones, you want to bring it in that way, tighten them up. So those guys are on, ready for some shifting and adjustment. First, when I do adjustments, to start off with the rear. First thing I'm doing, the cable tension. So each gear is each Goes up each click. Then just a limit screw here so it doesn't throw it off, so it prevents it from this direction. Then I adjust the L screw lower, which is the bigger cog, preventing it from going into the spokes. So, it's range. Then when I'm on the big and on the small up front, I'm going to adjust that limit so when it drops, that smaller one there, back it off just a smidgen so it doesn't run. While I'm at that position there, the cable is released at the lowest tension. Then I adjust the cable, tighten up the cable so it fits within that range. So trim. Then I can use my barrel adjuster, pick up a little bit of the slack. So I'm going to go down to my high limit. Fits that trim. Also goes in the big ring. And adjust the limit screw to prevent it from jumping over off the big ring. Like so. I got a little bit of a lube spotter after I did lube it before. Now I'm going to wipe off all the excess, and by adjusting the derailleurs, I gave it an even coat with a little bit of light lube on each one of these cogs. And this is a dry lube, so it'll eventually dry. Leave a tough on coating, and it's ready to go. So after I have my brakes adjusted and they're centered on those and also my derailleurs, I'm ready to cut my cables. On this one I like to leave it a little bit longer so I can actually fold it in, cap it, and zip tie it down. Usually you leave about 2.5 inches on the brakes, so just a little bit below where the brake portion ends. I like to leave them a little bit long because when you go to repair or switch it or do a tune-up, you can reuse those cables. If it's too short, then you have to replace the cable. So that just gives you a little bit longer life of the cable with just being the service aspect of it. And for this one, I'm gonna go with blue for the cable ends. Gotta be fun with it, right? You know, it's like one of those things. So I need 4 of these little boogers. There we go. Park Tool does have a tool for this. After all these years, I just use kind of a cable cutter here to crimp these down. Give it a little bit of detail, customization. Blue matches the decal and also the wheels. Here's a fun little trick I've learned over the years. So this guy sticks out, right? And you want to bump in your leg each time you pedal. So you take a small zip tie and you loop this down onto the cable that goes underneath. Pulls out of the way. And the reason why I put a bigger loop, so it doesn't bind and fray. And another great tool to tighten up zip ties is a cable tensioner. Kind of presses it in place, like so. You go to the pedal, clear. These are all good to go. All right, on the taping. So to recap, bought this bike used, and it was pretty dirty, kind of a diamond in the rough type of situation. And but I knew what I was getting into and what needed to be replaced and what not to be replaced, and it actually turned out to be less things than I thought. After more detailed look, I thought the chain may need to be replaced and possibly the cassette. Those are actually still not been used very much. This bike hasn't been used at all. The scratches and everything are on it are probably just mainly garage worn or thrown on a bike rack and transported. I think the kid that had this was using it for a trainer for a little bit, which usually trainers' bikes don't usually get too much because it's kind of a boring experience. So most people don't really get too involved with that, quite honestly. So in this particular vintage, you know, yeah, it is getting up there in age, but you know, compared to today's bikes, it's still pretty solid. It's gonna do what you want it to do for road riding. And it'll be an excellent beginner entry level road bike. And it's one of those things where, stage my stuff. So yeah, this will be an excellent bike for somebody to start off road riding. And when these bikes were coming out back in the day, and this also has a triple, so it has that smaller gear, or that granny gear for climbing those hills, which is really nice. And triples, when they came out, it was a game changer because here in Colorado, we have hills and mountains. And what was kind of strange is those manufacturers, it's not something that dawned on anybody until later, probably much after the mountain bike scene, because the mountain bike scene actually kind of developed the triple chainring, and it was not really applied to road bikes until a lot later. And I remember we would do a lot of conversions. One was the STI shifting in the brake levers. Back in the day, it was just a down tube shifter, so you had to deal with that. And on top of that, the triples came out, and then we had to do a lot of crankset shifter conversions. So people wanted to shift up here, then they wanted to change it to a triple. And that lasted for a couple years. And the Trek came out with a bike called the 1220. And the 1220 was an aluminum bike, and it had lower and mid-range componentry. And it was kind of like their first bike to kind of dive into the triple for climbing, and game changer. I mean, we would stock 2-3 run sizes, and we were a small shop, so to invest that much into road bikes, and this is right during the mountain bike heyday too. So it's kind of like mountain bikes were so mountain bike, and I was in it. It was like mountain bike race, you know, and road riding, it was still there, just not as strong. Get this started. So it was kind of nice that componentry kind of technology carried over. And also at the same time that Shimano gave up on Biopace. Biopace is, Google it, it's the funniest thing ever. And now they're kind of bringing it back, which is kind of bizarro to me. But anyway, that's just a thing. But with that triple, it kind of, got people back into road riding. And this is all coinciding when Trek started purchasing a whole bunch of bike companies, Le Mans, Gary Fisher, Klein. It kind of led into that. Then Armstrong started having this heyday. And that really brought road biking back to the forefront after being put on the back burner for so long because the mountain bikes were a huge thing. And one of the reasons the fall of Schwinn is they didn't accept mountain biking as a, they thought it was a fad. They thought it would just go out of style. They didn't really invested into it. Which, you know, they have their own problems, and that was not the only reason why they went down. And you do still see Schwinn today, but it's owned by its fourth or fifth company by now. And for a while there, they had an investment company that was actually making some pretty decent bikes. So a few of the older ones are good. Some of the newer ones are all pretty much department store brand. They ever so often try to come out with a model or a line that goes back into independent bike dealers, but they're pretty much a department store brand. But with all cycling world as of today, it's changing so much that some bigger power plays, I think it's Derailleurs owns them now. And there's another company in Europe that's buying up a whole bunch of bike stuff. And then there's Trek, and they're Specialized. Those are kind of your big and Giant, big manufacturer companies. And they're still, they're kind of conglomerated, ganged up, built up. But Armor All. Clean it up here. On to the next side. So, and this bike, when I'm getting at to a long story, not short, is the Carbon OCLV was a game changer for Trek. It really put them on the map or actually brought up carbon bikes to the market. And they had carbon bikes before, but this was a big leap. And then they kept it for a long time. And it changed the world of cycling. I mean, you know, the carbon here was jointed together back in the day. If you damaged one of these tubes, you can have it taken back to the manufacturer and they'll glue in a new piece for you and repaint it for a price, of course. But all that is done out overseas now, so they don't have that service. But don't be afraid of carbon. Carbon can be fixed more than, well, it can definitely be fixed and aluminum can't. So if aluminum frame fails, it's done. Carbon, there's there's carbon fixers everywhere pretty much nowadays. They do pretty much, the carbon's such a big piece now that they use it for a lot of different things. And there's people do specifically just bike carbon repair locally and overseas. And the neatest one I saw was some video of a guy that has a company in Europe. I forget the name, but what they do is they'll match the actual carbon type and the wall thickness of the repair that you would not even know that it was repaired. And then they have a paint booth that paints it to match the actual paint of the bike. So if you have a high-end road bike that you got damaged and you want it repaired, there's an option. I mean, obviously there's a cost to it. Oh, my sister's way over there. But I just thought it was just fascinating to see that this guy just did a simple repair for himself. And then he's like, oh, this is a thing. And now he has a whole company in Europe, England, I think, that does that. Excuse my reach around. Oh. There we go. Beautiful. So you yeah, so when you look at a bike like this, and yeah, it's a little bit older, but this is where the launching pad of the technologies for carbon were kind of accepted and kind of changed the path. And today's standard, yeah, they have a lot nicer, but to start off with, I mean, heck, this is an awesome bike to be one of your first road bikes, or even your second to start off with. It's a pretty awesome little guy. It handles that the carbon takes up all that vibration. It's lightweight. And so this will definitely make an awesome bike for somebody. Got these little stickers here to prevent cable wear. Like so. A little added detail. Also, my tag. Gotta tag my bikes. There we go. No one ready to hit the road. Find a new owner. Hopefully it finds a very happy home and gets a lot more thousands of miles put on it. Again, if you like these videos, please subscribe and like it. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, from the garage, I'm Justin the Guy. Have a good one.